So excited for our guest today on Off the Podium. A man who needs little introduction. He's an Olympic champion, a world champion, multiple Commonwealth Games, medalist, and something that I'm intrigued to talk about, a hummus connoisseur, which I think maybe needs to be introduced more when you introduce him on shows like this. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show, Mack Horton. Mack, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to chat with you today.
Thank you. I'm instantly regretting putting that in my Instagram profile.
Yeah, well, everyone goes for the whole, like, yeah, I won an Olympic gold medal. Sure, that's kind of cool. But I mean, hummus, like, talk more about hummus. It's great.
I love hummus. My favorite, well, I think best value for money is Yumi's, the big, like, 1 liter tub. I could smash one of those in a day if someone, if I needed to, or if I felt like it and didn't want, like, I was okay to feel sick for a bit, I could do it.
Yep.
But yeah, I like to delve and adventure different hummuses.
Yeah, it
Homicide.
works. Hummus, yeah. What is the plural of hummus? Kind of going that way. I remember in Canada at Costco, they would have, like, I think it was like a $5 thing, and it was like a 1 kilo too. It was giant, but it was so good, and you just couldn't stop eating it. You were like, oh, I shouldn't probably have another couple of crackers of this, but fuck it, I'm just going to go to town.
With lockdowns in Melbourne and stuff, and you're only allowed picnics, the go-to is the Yumi's hummus tub. You just cut up some carrots, some crackers. You don't need anything else. That's a meal.
Exactly. That's all. And I'm sure it works with the training regimen too, right? Like, it's not the worst thing you could eat.
No, good protein, I think.
Yeah. Kind of, it trains the secret of Olympians, you know. There you go. I remember Kieran Perkins used to write his name on your milk. You should be getting a hummus deal here, right? Mack Horton's name on some hummus. Come on.
If they want it on the cap, sure thing.
Yeah, exactly. I found a very intriguing stat about your gold medal win back in Rio, that you were the first male Victorian swimmer to win an Olympic gold medal. How is that a thing? 124 years of Olympic history and no male Victorian swimmer had ever won an Olympic gold medal. I mean, if that was a Tasmanian, just bag out my own state. Like, it took us Ariane to win an individual gold medal. There's that record broken. But Victoria, this should be a thing, right? You should be producing lots of swimmers.
Yeah, I don't know how that's a thing. I mean, I think I'm the first Victorian individual male. I don't think it's first. Yeah.
So there's some relay members.
We've had some relay members win it. But yeah, it's pretty crazy that Victoria has, I don't want to say failed to get medals up until this point. But I mean, so many swimmers have come through Victoria, and unfortunately a lot actually end up, moving into state and stuff, which is, the thing that happens with swimming, just mainly around climate. But yeah, it's pretty cool and it's pretty special. Particularly, I mean, Melbourne and Victoria is a city that loves their sports so much. And we have so many, like, iconic sporting events. It's cool to be. It is a long title, the first individual male swimmer to win an Olympic gold medal, but I'll take it.
You take it. That doesn't quite fit on the Instagram. Like, no. I don't know. You can't have that and hummus connoisseur, right? Like, you kind of have to choose one.
I'm much more about the hummus vibes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say about the relocation, because that's what, as a Tasmanian, we kind of got a bit annoyed during the whole Tokyo thing, where it was almost like the way the commentators are wording it, like, oh, she moved from the depths of Tasmania, Ariane Titmus, to Queensland. She was being held back by the archaic state of Tasmania. But it's been great that she's sort of embraced it when she's come back and gone to a school in Launceston, because that was a great stat that we were covering during Tokyo, that Tasmania had never had an individual Olympic gold medalist before. All our gold medalists had come in any sport. So, like, hockey, rowing, cycling, they'd all been members of teams, but it was our first ever individual Olympic gold medalist. So Queensland, stop stealing Ariane away. I realise she lives there, but she is a Tasmanian. We know our Tasmanians. She's ours.
And Queensland are very quick to say, oh, she's a Queenslander. But if it's you got to go off state of origin, I think.
Exactly.
Which they would very quickly go to in rugby or NRL or whatever that sport is. I don't know, because I'm from Victoria. So we have to play by the same rules.
Yeah, exactly. It goes that way. Just quickly on that, actually, I feel like one thing I want to talk to you about at the time of recording this. I believe you're a Demon supporter. Are you still celebrating? Is it still something that you've calmed down from? Because this means something that you just want to shout to the hills, right?
Yes, I'm a Demons supporter. It was fantastic to see it finally happen. Yeah, I think it was probably bittersweet being in Melbourne for it, though, when it was over in WA. I mean, so many people have waited so long to see them pull it off, and to be, in the midst of a very harsh lockdown was kind of cruel. But yeah, as I haven't been in Melbourne while they've started opening up, but I'm sure everyone will begin to start celebrating now, and I think they're going to do a tour with the Cup and what have you. So it's very exciting for Demons fans out there.
Can you honestly relate? Like, this might sound like a dumb question, but as a sports fan, I think anybody could probably relate to this. Can you compare watching your beloved Demons winning an AFL premiership to winning an Olympic gold medal? Because, I mean, like, seriously, like, win an Olympic gold medal, it's a great achievement. But if you've supported a club like that for your entire life, not literally in your lifetime, have they won a premiership and you've seen this? Like, can you compare the two?
Well, I mean, Demons winning a premiership, one in 57 years, and then I don't know how many Olympic gold medals they hand out every Olympics, but there'd be a couple of hundred every 4 years. So I think Demons winning is rarer and more special.
Exactly. I mean, look, I'm a Carlton supporter, and I can complain about lack of success, but I mean, come on, you couldn't do that until recently. You'd be telling me to shut up 20 years ago. Like, come on, stop.
When was your last one? Do you know?
95. So the year before you were born, I think. So I remember it. I was alive. I remember it. I was 8. So at least I can say I remember it. So yeah.
Are you like a diehard sporting buff? All sports?
Yeah, too much. It's a bit sad sometimes, just because it is a case of the teams you end up going for. You think to yourself, why? Like why do I torture myself? With that. It's kind of like but I'm loyal. Like it's sort of like Carlton. I mean, I've seen some like Cronulla fans, so I was lucky enough to go to that grand final, see them break the drought. Yeah. Raptors fans, saw them win a championship.
I don't even know what these sports are, though. I don't know.
That's it. You just nod and smile, Mac. It's fine. They won something every now and then, but
well done to them.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Go team. But for yourself, growing up, swimming, it's such a sport that many Australians, or pretty much all Australians, we do at some point. We've got to learn to swim. But what was it that kind of took you over that edge to take the competitive route and kind of pursue this as something that you wanted to go towards?
I don't know if there was an edge that was like, this is the competitive route I want to go down. It was just, I loved swimming and it's fun. And I loved pushing myself. I've like quite fond memories of when I first joined swimming squad and I was maybe 10 or 11. Everyone else in the squad was like 15 or 16. And I would just rock up and just try and chase them down for like an hour and a half, and it was just the best fun. And then I guess it just kind of evolves over the years, and it's like, how can I continue to push myself, and how can I guess prove that I push myself harder than everyone else, and that just happens to be racing. But you touched on a point that I love about being Australian, is that everyone, I mean, you just have to learn to swim because we're surrounded by water, and it's such a big part of our culture to go to the beach or lake or the river and, get wet basically. So I just love that it's like so deeply entrenched in our DNA.
Which it's fascinating talking to athletes from other countries, or say like some of the winter athletes, where it's kind of like, we grew up near the mountains, so like skiing was part of school. And to an Australian, like, that's so foreign. It's like, wow, like skiing in school, whereas
it's also way cooler than swimming.
Yeah, well, on many levels on that one. Whereas there are some countries where it's like, in Canada, it was like a thing like, oh, you like swimming like that age? Like, it's sort of like, it's like, well, yeah, we're kind of surrounded by water. So it's sort of, it's often more of a safety thing, right? Like, it's kind of, we need to learn how to swim.
Yeah, and skiing would be too. It'd be a safety thing. Like if you're living up on the mountain, you have to know how to navigate the mountains and, I don't know, maybe avalanches and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just one of those things that we grow up doing, and I guess that's why our GDP for Olympic swimming or whatever is so good compared to other nations.
Were you a very sporty kid with other pursuits? Like, were you dreaming of, pulling on the blue and red for the Demons one day? Were you like doing Aussie rules and things like that as well as swimming?
It's funny you bring this up because I've been like reflecting on this, particularly around the Demons winning the premiership. I used to hate football at school.
Wow.
And it's because I was always swimming and I didn't really do other sports because it took up so much time. And then, at lunchtime, whatever, everyone would be kicking the footy and I'm completely uncoordinated because I'm a swimmer. And so I like almost despised it, didn't watch it. I was like, I can't be involved in this. And then thinking back, I was like, look at all these like sporty people, these sporty athletes. And then it's like, I am the sports person now. It's really weird. It's like, I just never thought I would be a sports person because I hated ball sports, but I just loved swimming. Yeah.
Wow. So what would you do instead? Were you kind of like in the library or something instead, or like, kind of doing non-sporting activities?
Just sitting around and chatting or eating. I like half of my lunchtime was probably eating because I was so hungry all the time. Or like, honestly, I just had no energy at school because I was waking up at 4:30, swimming, coming straight to school, then swimming after school again, getting home at like 6. And so they were big days. And so, even if I was coordinated, I probably didn't have the capacity to be participating.
Keep doing it that way. Were you somebody that would watch the Olympics? Was that kind of something that kind of came to you while you were swimming, or were you an Olympics fan sort of before you took swimming further the way you did?
No, I definitely watched the Olympics. I remember watching it I have a really clear memory of Beijing 2008. I remember I'd met Grant Hackett a couple of years earlier in Melbourne when must have been the World Championships or Com Games were at MSAC or something. And I bumped into him out the front, got a photo with him. As a kid, I didn't really know who he was at that point in time. But he had like this presence around him. And I was like, he's an athlete. I should get a photo with him. He's famous. Blah, blah. Went home, Googled him. And I was like, this is my man. This 1500 man is my man. And so I have this like really clear memory of Beijing 2008. I knew the 1500 was on during the day while I was at school. And I was like, no one tell me. Mum recorded it for me. I got home, sat down in front of the couch, like on the floor, just like glued to the screen and watched it. And I have other little snippets of memories of watching the Olympics, but that's like the clearest one. I was like, wow, the Olympics is the real thing. It's the dream.
Because that was, obviously that was the last time we've medalled in the 1500 metres, but that was really almost like the end of this golden era of 1500 metre swimming for Australia, wasn't it? It's just through Kieran and then through Grant, it was just, that was the event. That was the one, if any Olympics came around, you're like, well, 1500 metres is ours, no one is touching it. Was that kind of a bit of a draw to you that once you Googled it, you knew who this guy was, like you kind of learned a bit of the history and it was like, wow, this is this event that is just amazing. This is Australia's event at the Olympics.
Yeah, I think, I used to swim 1500 as well, as I'm sure you probably know.
Yep.
And I think, part of the draw to me doing it was understanding that history and understanding that it is Australia's event. But then also it's the hardest event there is. And it's just cool just the respect and I guess what you have to put your body through and the challenge of, tackling an event that is that big is special. And if you can do it, it's like, why wouldn't you? There's a lot of people that potentially, could do it, but shy away from all the work and stuff. I just think, you got to make the most of, if you have the talent and the ability to do it, you got to go after it.
And with that sort of talent and ability, is that something that gets discovered while you're kind of going through the ranks, that maybe you're going to be more attuned to the distance events rather than the sprinting, or does it come down more to a personal preference that you want to challenge yourself for the further events rather than just doing the 100 metres?
I think, there's an aspect of physical ability, but then also, I guess, like mental capacity. It's pretty hard to find, a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid who's willing to push themselves that hard. You have to be a little bit nuts. But for me, I bounced around quite a bit, actually, trying to find the event that best suited me. I actually started doing backstroke.
Wow.
Well, I was pretty young, though, so it was like, we'll just toy around with backstroke for a bit, and then kind of did freestyle and I mean, when you're like that young, you can rock up every second weekend and swim a 200 and take 10 seconds off your PB, and it's the best thing ever. But I just progressively got longer and longer and longer. And I think, you know, what kept me getting longer and longer was I was getting enjoyment out of those events, and I enjoyed, you know, the hard work, but also just finding a rhythm. And I guess 1500 is almost like meditation, because if you aren't relaxed in that, you know, in those 15 minutes, then it's going to hurt a lot more. So it's almost like a forced meditation. And I guess you learn a bit about yourself through that process as well.
That's a great way of looking at it, actually, because it was always the event that I loved watching growing up. You know, I remember a similar thing to you, sort of saying, like, I don't want to be spoiled on the event. I think it was Atlanta. I was playing hockey or something along those lines, and it was like I knew that was on that morning, so I'm like, I don't want to be spoiled. Like, I know this is going to happen, and you go home and you're enthralled by watching obviously what happened there with Kieran's win. But it's always been the event that has fascinated me, because it also seems so strategic, like in the fact that you've got to no doubt pick and choose when you swim faster, or kind of, you know, okay, I'm going to conserve the energy and everything along those lines too. So it's sort of, it's always that unique aspect of the 1500 meters.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think part of the draw to Australians and Australians swimming 1500 is that historically we've probably had the most guts. I mean, you look at the way Kieran Grant swam it, they would just go out and just hope that they could hang on. And just it's taken many years for the rest of the world to catch on, I think, and to figure out how to, I guess, back themselves in to swimming a 1500 like that. And I mean, you see, I think in Tokyo even a little bit, there was a bit of maybe complacency at the start of that 1500. As it's very easy to fall into the trap of waiting for someone else to make a move, or just all sitting together and swimming off for the last, 100 or whatever, which almost like tunes into what happens in open water. And so, I mean, that history of going out really hard. I don't know if you remember in Rio, Jared Port was in the 10K and he went out max from the start. I think he had a 3-minute gap on everyone. And it's like, it's only something an Australian would do to try and push themselves that hard, with the hope that maybe they'll hang on. And he almost pulled it off. But yeah, it's an element of bravery, I think.
Yeah, I like that. Was there any ever temptation to look at open water swimming? Kind of like you talk about pushing yourself, like go for the longer 1500, that's nothing. 10K, why not?
No, it's too much of a push. No, I think, I mean, you have to be built for it as well as an element of that. And I mean, to be good in open water and chop, you probably need like a shorter length of a stroke so that your rate sits a bit higher. Otherwise you get thrown around too much. And my stroke's a bit too long for that.
And also you got to deal with fish, wasn't it, in Tokyo? There were bloody fish jumping around everyone.
And I also can't see anything as it is. Yeah. So
doesn't quite work that way.
Navigating. Yeah.
How does that actually work with, like, are you wearing contacts in the pool, or is like are your glasses kind of like your goggles? Sorry, prescription goggles. Like, do you need that?
Yes. Speedo make me like prescription goggles so I can see.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Special order.
Is that common? Like, is that sort of something that a lot of swimmers actually do?
Not really. Most people just throw contacts in. But then, I mean, I like wearing glasses, so then I wouldn't wear glasses if I had contacts. I like to take my glasses off, put my goggles on, etc.
Yeah.
It's all about keeping up appearances.
Okay. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. You've got to look to maintain, Mac. We all know you with the glasses. All of a sudden, you're like, "No, I'm going to wear the contacts." Well, who's that guy? Oh,
you wouldn't recognize me.
That's not Mack Horton. He wears glasses. Don't know who that guy is. Sort of as you're progressing through the ranks, junior Pan Pacs, kind of Youth Olympic Festival, things along those lines. Was there a point when you set the goal for Rio? Like, this became sort of a realistic goal that you thought, okay, well, this is possible. I could be at the Olympics in 2016.
I think in 2012 I swam at the Olympic trials, and I was in the 1500 then, and I think maybe in the back of my mind I was like, maybe I could make it. I was 16 at the time, and I led 1,450 meters of the 1,500 trials, and so I ended up came second. And the selection for swimming is you have to be first or second, and you have to be under the A qualifying time. So I was second, but not under the A qualifying time.
Ouch.
And so I think, that was kind of unexpected. I kind of didn't. I mean, there's always, as a kid, there's like in the back of your mind, like, oh yeah, I want to do this. Maybe I could do this. But I think after that, it's like, okay, genuinely, I could have a serious crack at, making the Australian team. And I mean, from that Olympics to the next one's 4 years, obviously. So it's a realistic time frame to make a big push and, I guess, solidify a spot.
And in terms of that focus on the 1,500 meters, how did you at that point sort of balance it between, say, the 400, or obviously like you've got 800 at World Championships? I mean, was to you your event the 1,500 meters and the 400 was secondary, or kind of was it just a bit of a balance between the two?
I think it was, 1,500 was my event, and then 400 was probably secondary, but mainly out of like it had to be secondary to help my 1,500 get better, and same with the 200. It's like, out of necessity, I had to have, a decent 100, 200, and 400 to be able to progress the 1,500, because you need to be able to swim fast easily. And so, I mean, if I could choose, at that time, it probably would have just been 1,500, but it was, out of necessity that I had to have decent other events.
How amazing is that moment when you crack the 15 minutes? Is that like that glorious barrier that as you're going up, you're getting there, and when you do, you're like, wow, okay, I've done it. I've cracked the 15.
It is pretty good. I actually can't remember when I did it, which sounds really bad. I think, I reckon I went 15:01 once, and I was like, damn, it's so close. And then maybe my next one would have been like a 14:56 or something. And it's like the 4 minute mile. But then also there's the realization once you've cracked it that, you get to an Olympics or a World Championships and you have to crack it comfortably in the heat and then well and truly crack it again in the final. So it's, I mean, you just have to swim under 15 minutes now if you want to get to that level.
In terms of Commonwealth Games 2014, come away from Glasgow with a gold in the 4x2, a silver in the 1,500 meters. Just fast forwarding a little bit, then add in the Gold Coast as well. Just what are your sort of experiences like at a Commonwealth Games? Because I always love the Commonwealth Games. The Commonwealth Games, to me, I've always said is kind of like, this is how America must feel at the Olympics, right? They just win everything. So it's like the Commonwealth Games, Australia, win everything. So like, this is fantastic. But I mean, do you remember sort of that first experience, kind of a big multi-sport event like that? And does that like also help you then towards when you're experiencing an Olympics a couple of years later?
I think for me, I remember at the time thinking, this is like the perfect stepping stone, because my first team was the 2014 Commonwealth Games, and it was Worlds next year, and then Olympics, obviously, after that. And I guess, in terms of the swim meet part, they build up in intensity and focus, and that progression slowly built me up and got me ready for the Olympics. But it's also the first taste I had of a like village environment. And the village is just wild. Like you just can't explain it. It's just like, it's like a theme park for sports people, I guess. And it's just, I mean, I remember in Tokyo, and it's the same for all village environments, but Tokyo is the closest one, so it's easy to reflect on, is just sitting outside the dining hall and just watching everyone walk past and say, wow, there's just so many incredible human beings here, and they're all trying to achieve the same thing. And it's just the coolest thing.
Which, is it more relaxed at a Commonwealth Games? Like, is it kind of a bit more of a, chill atmosphere?
As an Australian swimmer particularly. And I mean, Gold Coast was probably the most fun I've ever had, because I don't want to sound arrogant, but the Dolphins destroyed the pool. We tore it up.
You can be arrogant. It's true,
So it's good fun. And in front, I know, home crowd, and I mean, that's the first time I've ever had a meet of that scale in front of a home crowd. So it's, it's just super special.
One thing too, obviously Tokyo was a bit different because you couldn't do it, but like at any of these, Olympics, Commonwealth Games, going out and watching different sports. Now, I actually have a story about you, weirdly enough, from the Gold Coast. I worked at the Commonwealth Games. I worked boxing. I was the mixed zone group leader. And at one point, sort of we're there, and it was in between bouts, and somebody kind of was like, we'd always try and spot people in the crowd. Like we had like the Prime Minister or President of Nauru in at one point, like Prince Andrew came. It was kind of cool. Anastasia showed up one time, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Ben, like, look who's up in the crowd. I'm like, oh, is that Mack Horton? There he is. I'm kind of like, oh, there he is. There's Mack, just chilling there watching the boxing. So did you enjoy the boxing on the Commonwealth Games?
I enjoyed the boxing. Com Games is the I mean, you go to an Olympics and you have a dream of seeing a lot of sports, but it's pretty hard to pull off. But Com Games in a home country, you can get away with anything. So I saw boxing, lawn bowls, athletics, like just everything. It was amazing.
Them all off. How was lawn bowls? I sadly didn't get to the lawn bowls, but I wish I had of.
We went the night an Australian won gold and like ripped off his top. There was like I can't remember his name though. Yep. But everyone was incredibly rowdy. It was good fun.
Nice. Did you get it while you were out where the boxing was? Did you sneak into the table tennis or the squash? Because that was kind of all at the same area. It was kind of a great little venue area.
I think we had planned on doing it, but we couldn't. Either there wasn't something on or we couldn't sneak in. I can't remember. But I remember thinking we're going to tick off a lot of things and it just didn't work.
I will say that was a slight benefit of the boxing, given that you had a morning session and an evening session. There was like a 3-hour window in between, and kind of, it was all right with some of the accreditation. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go watch the table tennis on my lunch break. Why not? Just.
Was this a volunteer role? Were you volunteering?
No, I was an actual employee of Goldock. So proud employee, Mac. It was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
I think when I'm done swimming, I just want to be involved any way I can around the village, doing, I don't know, anything. Just so I can watch the sport and be a part of it. Because, I mean, I've lived one side and I know how amazing, those sorts of events can be. So
it's actually really fascinating because, like, I've spent the majority of my time as a journalist or a radio host. So this was kind of the first time where I'm, as you go through the mix zone and kind of you're being ferried to talk to the journalist. So I'm that guy who's like getting you off the pool deck going like, hey, here's the journalist to speak to. So it was kind of strange dealing with journalists and like going like, I'm usually one of you, and realizing some of them can be dicks. I'm like, okay, am I that way? But then it's also like the thing I found fascinating, because I didn't know anything about boxing. I'd never really experienced it, but like meeting the athletes and kind of seeing that, and just, as with any sport, the pure passion and emotion. I mean, I nearly got decapitated, I think, by a Samoan boxer who threw his water bottle basically directly at my head because he lost. And then there was another athlete, I can't remember where he was from, but he was so pissed off that he'd lost. And one of our volunteers, because they were doing it for the Games media website, was just kind of like, oh, like, how do you feel? Like, are you obviously disappointed? It's bullshit! It's fucking bullshit! I'm so fucking angry! I'm fucking bullshit! And this poor dude, okay. Thanks for your time. Right.
I think, I mean, we're quite lucky in Australia that, if we don't swim well or perform well, we're probably going to be fine and live a fairly comfortable life. But for a lot of people, when they come to a Commonwealth Games or Olympics, it's like their families' lives and futures depend on them performing. So the passion and the emotion is there. Yeah. And I guess desperation in some aspects as well.
Yeah, it is. And it's also like the aspect of, like, say, a Commonwealth Games too, where, again, all jokes aside, Australia, we do very well. Whereas like some of these smaller countries where this is almost like their Olympics, right? Like, they're maybe never going to achieve an Olympic spot. So this is as high as they can go. So it's kind of that element of pride that some of these smaller nations have by getting to a Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very, very interesting. What was that moment like at the trials before Rio to make it? Sort of, you mentioned sort of London, get so close, but then all of a sudden, boom, you're going into it. I mean, you're obviously having a very good year in 2016. You had a good year in 2015 with the World Champs as well. But, do you remember that sort of moment, the first time you knew you were officially then going to be going to the Olympics?
I think just sheer relief. 2015, we had World Championships in Kazan, Russia, and I picked up a parasite. I'd lost like 5 kilos in 3 days. I was just crook as. I swam. I don't think I made the final in the 400 or the 1500. I'd made it in the 800, and I think I somehow got to a bronze medal. I'm not sure how. Anyway, it took me a couple of months to recover, antibiotics, whatever. And, I was coming in and maybe I'd only get through 3K a session just because my body couldn't handle it. And so that like last push towards Rio trials was big. It was, it took a lot. And it's like, am I going to be ready? And, so once I touched that wall in the 400 and I had the position, it's just relief. And then the beauty of the 400 at trials and most events is it's on the first night. And that is a beautiful thing because you can relax for the rest of the week.
You're there.
And just enjoy it, try and pick up a spot in the 200 or another event, and just support everyone else as well, who's going through, I think trials is more stressful than the Olympics. There's more pressure. In some events, it's probably harder to make a final at our trials than the Olympics as well. So, yeah, once you tick it off, it's good.
Which at that point too, I mean, going into Rio, you were the fastest 400-meter swimmer in the world. I mean, was there a switch? Like, were you all of a sudden focusing more on the 400, or was it just things kind of fell into line where all of a sudden you go, hang on a minute, why am I so good at the 400? I want to be concentrating on the 1500, but I'm doing all right in the 400 as well.
I think, being sick in Russia, I probably didn't get as much like endurance work in. And so we slowly kind of realized that maybe we wouldn't be ready for the 1500 and kind of shifted our pace work and stuff to 400. And I think I was like kind of partly in denial. I was still going to the Olympics thinking, the 1500 is my best shot.
Wow.
It's hilarious. And then, as we got closer and closer, I got more and more confident in the 400. And I was like, okay, well, it's difficult when you have an event at the start and the end of the week, particularly if you're split on probably what the priority is, because tapers are so finely tuned, and that's 8 days difference, and a lot can happen in 8 days. Anyway, we set up the taper for the 400, and yeah, I guess the belief just grew and grew, and then it's almost getting into that mindset of you can't look forward or can't look towards the end of the week. It's just get through this, and then you can think about whatever comes after that. So yeah, it just kind of happened naturally, I think.
Yeah,
is the answer to your question. I sort of I detoured there.
I mean, winning Olympic gold, it just happened naturally. Yeah, gold medal, yeah, just there it is. You got to kind of all float in together.
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
But what when you go into an event like that, knowing that you are the fastest in the world at that point, does it add pressure that you've kind of maybe got to live up to the fact that you are the fastest in the world at that point? Or do you kind of take it more as a, I can take this on board and go, well, people have to catch me because I am the best in this one, and, try and catch me if you can?
Neither. I don't really think about it, to be honest, which is a very boring answer, I know. But I think, I don't know how it happened, but I still felt like I was an underdog going into Rio, and probably still like portrayed as an underdog going into Rio, because there were a lot of people that had still swum faster than I. I was just the fastest that year. And so I got the confidence of being the fastest that year, but then also, I guess, the ability to lay low with, my ranking against people's historical times.
Which is also to the history that Australia has in the event. It's interesting you're sort of talking about, watching the Olympics, Beijing. I mean, I don't know if you sort of remember Athens and kind of seeing, Thorpe and Hackett go 1-2, or if you obviously, what about 4 around Sydney, so probably, don't remember all that sort of stuff. But I mean, outside of the 1500 meters, around about that time, it was kind of an event that we have a storied history in it as well. So, it's always interesting. That is an event that Australians, we always have it. I mean, even in Tokyo, just gone, like first night, boom, where we're straight away delving into the history of kind of what's going to happen. Yeah.
I think that, coming from the 1500 and having understanding of that history helped me to have an understanding, I guess, appreciation of the 400 history as well. In saying this, though, there's history in every event. There's just like successful history in, the men's 400 and 1500. And I mean, partly, I still think we should have that world record in the 400, Australia. Thorpe had it taken off 0.01. Anyway.
Yeah, whole other conversation, right? Won't happen to get into that. But I watched the race before this interview. Just kind of, it'd been a while since I'd watched it. And I mean, what was
The way you said that is like, I watch it, every couple of weeks.
Yeah, I do. Like, it's literally, it's just like, what's it, Tuesday, 3:00. Haven't watched Max Gold in a while. I just kind of put it on. There it is. That and Atlanta 96. All I do in my life is watch your gold and Kieran's gold from Atlanta.
That's
Seriously.
a privilege. Thank you.
That's it. It keeps me going, Mac.
Yeah.
It keeps me fueled up. But what is the strategy going into a final? Do you relate to what you do in the heat, or kind of turn it up? What's your coach kind of saying to you at that point? And was everything executed perfectly? I mean, you win the gold. I'm guessing it was kind of executed perfectly, but did it all kind of fit into what the strategy was going into the race?
I think when you think about the Olympics, a lot of people think it's like a high performance environment, but it's actually not. And it's not about, swimming the fastest time ever. It's about just racing and being the first one to the wall, because realistically the conditions of the Olympics aren't ideal. And so everyone's just dealing with the same thing and doing the best that they can. And so I guess we had a strategy based off racing and I guess like an internal feel of where my body's at. And it's a race strategy we practiced over and over and over again, just like at local small meets, state championships, what have you. Just the way I paced each 100 was something I was really familiar with, so that when I did get there, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to, consciously change my strategy. I think a lot of people get to an Olympics and they're like, I see what so-and-so is doing from another country. That's a bit funky. I need to do something different or special to try and level up. But you actually just have to stick to the plan that you've been, practicing for the last 4 years, because that's what you know best and that's what you know how to execute. And that's, you don't have to tap into anything extra to execute a plan that you've been rehearsing. So for us, it was just, continuing to do the same thing, just a little bit faster.
In that last 50, when you go into that wall, you touch to it the gold. I mean, how aware are you of sun next to you? Like, are you able to see? Like, do you know as soon as you touch that you've won the gold, or is it literally that moment because it's so close you look up at the scoreboard and then realize that you've got the gold?
Aware, but also not aware, if that makes sense. I think I was aware of how close it was, particularly for the last 100, and a big aspect of our strategy was improving my turns a lot. And so that last turn was the fastest turn I've ever done. I think it's the fastest turn out of that whole field, and maybe the fastest turn anyone's ever done in a 400. I'm not
Take
sure
it, say it. Put it on your Instagram profile. There
maybe.
It is. Next to hummus connoisseur.
I don't have a lot of confidence in that quote though. What was the question? Was I aware?
Yeah, were you aware?
Yeah, I think there's also like an aspect of just sheer pain on that last 50. I probably almost blacked out. The world kind of goes dark. My eyes are just closed. But on a finish, I think as a swimmer, you practice finishes so much that you are actually aware of where you place. I mean, it's the worst finish I've ever done, and I probably could have gone a fair bit faster if I didn't look. But as I touched, I looked across to see if I got it. And so I knew I had it in that moment, but then you never actually know until you've seen the scoreboard. But then, of course, I couldn't see the scoreboard properly. So I had to wait till Dave McKeon, who was in the race with me, a fellow Australian, came over. And he's like, you did it, just going nuts.
I was wondering what he was saying to you, because I'm watching the footage, what is being said at that moment.
A few bad words in there, but that was the gist.
Just, you've done that. But, when you realise, it's the question you no doubt get asked all the time, what's that feeling like when you touch the wall? You're an Olympic champion. But within this time limit that it's been now, the time we're recording this has been more than 5 years. Is it something that you compute more and more that the time goes on? Maybe if you watch the race a few more times and kind of see it, that it means something differently now, reflecting on, okay, well, I am an Olympic champion.
I honestly never think about it.
I clearly watch it too much, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm doing all the thinking for you.
When I do try and think about it, I wish I remembered more from the whole experience. I think, just in an Olympic week, there's so much focus. You can't really take much in. And even touching, winning, it's just overwhelming. Normal humans can't compute that, I don't think. And so, wish I had clearer and crisper memories of the whole thing. The main things I remember are Dave coming over to me, and also the step up onto the podium, because I remember putting my hand on my chest and feeling the weight of the medal clank on my like sternum, and then sticking my arm up. And then I also remember looking to my left and like my gym coach and biomecha and Stan going nuts. And they're just like the three crisp memories I have. But yeah, I wish there was more.
My favourite moment is when you're being interviewed pool deck. Basically, the first thing you turn around and say is, "Oh, I didn't beat my personal best." It's like, yeah, you just won an Olympic gold medal. You're, oh shit, I didn't beat my PB. Oh well.
I don't remember that.
You're just like, you're so disappointed in your time. It's like, oh, don't want, yeah.
That's how it is, though. That's the Olympics. It's just racing. It's like, it's not about PBs. But yeah, you always want more.
There's always want more. Which that was when we started this show. We started back in Rio, so basically we do daily coverage during the Olympics, and that was our very first daily coverage. And I remember coming on that night and being like, "Stop the Olympics, Australia! We've won the Olympics!" Because obviously with the girls winning the gold that day, we were on top of the medal tally after day one of Rio. And look, I don't know my history that much to know if Australia's ever topped the medal tally at one point, but there it was, Rio. You helped achieve that. So, like, could you have done something to cancel the Olympics for us on that day, Mac? I mean, you'd helped us get to the top of the medal tally. So, the Olympics over.
I don't mind disrupting a bit, so I could have tried, but I don't think it would have gone down very well.
Not quite. Just with the 1500 though, ultimately, how do you reflect on that? Because I mean, people would obviously no doubt look and go, well, you've had a successful meet, you're an Olympic champion, you've won the 400 meters, but as you're saying, your event was still the 1500 meters. Not to medal in that, like, do you reflect on that and actually leave disappointed because your pet event you weren't able to achieve maybe what you set out to achieve?
There's this excellent quote, "You're only as good as your last race." And so I remember leaving the Olympics, coming fifth. That's how I remember it. But, I mean, in hindsight, it's really just experience. And I think this, for me, put into perspective how great Phelps is. Like, the emotional roller coaster and the physical toll just winning one Olympic gold medal takes on you, and everything that comes with it. It's exhausting. And so, I mean, not that I was exhausted when I got to the 1500, but looking back, there's probably things that I've learned that I, could manage a bit better going forward. But also I remember swimming the heat, and it was, one of the easiest 1500s of my life. And then it's just like, that deeper fatigue the next day. One of those races where you dive in and you're cooked and you just got to hang on. So yeah, and that was probably one of my last decent 1500s, or shots at a decent 1500 as well. So it's a bit sad, but what can you do?
Is it a case of someone like Phelps in the sport? Obviously that was his last Olympics, but do you look back and think like, damn, I wish he swam the 1500 or the 400 so I could have gone like toe to toe in like my pet events? Or is it a case of, well, thank God, like he stopped winning the golds, Michael, like, I want to have a chance?
No, I think you always want to go toe to toe with the best. And I think, it would have been cool to get, Phelps in his peak swimming a 400. That would be unreal. But yeah, there'll be someone else.
Yeah, there will be, right? Plenty to go with that. Yeah. One thing I always love to learn from any Australian gold medalist on this show, you come home, you're on a stamp. Do you remember the first time you see your stamp, and do you keep them? Like, do you just want to constantly have a bunch of Mack Horton stamps ready to go and send a bunch of letters?
I have a pile somewhere. I don't know where they are. It's like one of those things you want to use but you also want to save and you just never end up using. I think my mum bought a heap, and like obviously the grandparents and stuff. And then friends would start buying them and giving them to me. And yeah, it's hilarious. It's very cool. And then I bought Zach Stublety-Cook, who won the 200 breast in Tokyo. I bought a sheet of his stamps, so I'll hold on to them and probably never use them as well.
Just send him a letter with just his entire cover, just enough for the address, right? Like in the little thing.
But then I need another envelope because I want a perfect sheet.
Yeah, exactly. But is that weird though? If you receive a letter and your face is on it, like, oh, bloody Telstra bill. Oh wait, there I am.
I think I probably did, but again, I wish I had clearer memories of all these things. But I think just lack of sleep and lots of early mornings has actually destroyed my memory. So unfortunately, I don't.
Which then sort of in between Rio, then through to Tokyo. How detrimental was that break, the pandemic year ultimately? I mean, we obviously know what happened sort of with Tokyo missing out in the 400 to defend your title, but was that down to something that could have, like, if we had have gone normally in 2020, would that have been different, do you feel?
I was feeling pretty good in 2020, but I'm not about blaming things. I think, I mean, for me, I think a good training block is good weeks, not just good days. It's much harder to piece together a complete week. And weeks are designed so that you, I guess, tick everything off that you need to work on across that week. And I mean, leading up to trials, I had to flee lockdowns 3 times, and I had to go to Queensland for 2 weeks to get into Adelaide to get into trials. But before that, we'd had training camps, we had to leave early, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just had too many weeks that we interrupted, isolate for 3 days this week, try and catch up sessions the next week. And so eventually it does start to add up a little bit, unfortunately. But, I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, which on the flip side of what you're talking about before, when you qualify for Rio, first event done, you're there. How then does that, on the opposite side of things, when you've missed out, there's obviously that media attention around like, Mack Horton, he's not going in the 400, to try and then back that up to get that slot, which you ultimately do get for the 4x2.
It's awful. The other hard thing was, because of lockdown in Melbourne, my mum had booked a house for like my family, my girlfriend. We were all going to stay there and whatever. But it just ended up being me and only me, because no one could come across. And so, I mean, that was a pretty grim night after that 400, just sitting home alone in this big house. And I think, I mean, I obviously a lot of people say they don't get scared or have fear or anything, but like for the first time in my life, I was like, geez, what do I do now? Didn't actually know what was going to happen next. And I think I probably only slept like 2 hours or so that night as well. Just like, okay, do I get a job now, or what happens? And then I think slowly I started to shift my mindset, but it took a long time. And it was like, okay, I can still swim fast, but I still wasn't fast enough in the 400. And I have the experience in the Olympics behind me. I'm going to get on this relay team and just help get the guys the best result they can, try and put them in a position where they're comfortable and swimming fast. And, that's going to be my job these Olympics. It's the shift from, Rio, what do I need to do to be the best that I can be, to Tokyo, which was how can I, help everyone get through this week, and how can we get the best team going forward?
As much as it obviously was disappointing not to be in the event in Tokyo, what was it like being able to be in the stands and cheering on, Jack obviously going on to get a silver, very narrowly, nearly sort of defended the 400 for Australia?
It was, I mean, it's hard to watch, obviously, because I would have loved to have been in there, but incredibly happy for Jack as well. We're very good friends. And I think he is the hardest worker I've ever seen. He's been slogging for so many years. And so stoked he got the silver, but also he would have loved that gold. And we were actually in an apartment together, and it was like this, yes, but then also he obviously wanted more, which is just what comes with being an athlete. Yeah, it's great to be there and be able to support him, and I guess live, that experience with him and everyone else in the team.
Which at the end of the day, though, like obviously you want, if you're not going to win a gold, you want a teammate to win a gold medal. But then ultimately, if you're going to lose, you don't want to lose to like an American or a Brit and all that sort of stuff. But to lose to Tunisia, I mean, we were very excited on the show to celebrate Ahmed's gold. Like, I mean, I think we gave him our athlete of the day on that day. It's like, great, Tunisia, like this is fantastic. I mean, is there a weird sense of joy seeing someone from a country like Tunisia, Ahmed winning a gold medal and the celebrations that he obviously had after that gold?
It's pretty cool. He played the like pure underdog game. He just literally came out of nowhere, which is the way to do it.
Yeah, which it's fantastic, sort of, to see kind of that sort of stuff. Look, I'm not here to dwell on any negatives and all that kind of stuff, Mac. But like, can you take the experience from Tokyo, everything that kind of led up to it now, and then weirdly use it as a positive to spur you on towards Paris? Like, can you take the negatives and go, okay, well, I don't ever want to feel this crap again. So this is gonna, bring me back into where I was, back towards Rio, and kind of push me towards a third Olympics.
Definitely, I've never been so motivated or hungry before. I think, that was there after trials. I was like, oh, we're going again. I think, leading up to Tokyo was like, I'll do what I want to achieve here. And then, maybe the focus of my life will shift or whatever. But as soon as I can tick that box, it's like, all right, swimming's still it. We're still going. We haven't got all of it out and we need to do it. So yeah,
keep on pushing forward.
Yeah.
Which also then too, I mean, you'll be what, 28 come Paris.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 32 LA, 36 Brisbane. I mean, does that legitimately give you like pause for thought? Like, could I push the body that far to end my career at a home Olympics?
Definitely not. I've got too many other things I want to do in life. And I mean, I love swimming, but I also love swimming fast, and I just can't imagine it's going to feel that great at 36. But I want to be involved in every Olympics going forward somehow, somewhere, even if it's just going to watch. I mean, once you've caught that bug and experienced it, it's pretty hard to step away from it.
Mixed zone, I'm telling you, Mac. Like, I mean, you've been so many ends of these, stupid journalists asking you stupid questions, right? Like, you can be the one on the other side of it now. Like, stop asking me, but like, I've answered that one. I got splashed. Get over it. I won a gold medal. Come on, move on.
I thought bus driver, actually, maybe.
Yeah. Hey, how would that be? Like, welcome to the bus. Oh, Mack Horton, how you doing? Didn't recognise you without your glasses, but hey, I can't wait for you to
no glasses driving the bus. Yeah.
Wait, hang on a minute. Yeah, shouldn't you be wearing those glasses? I might not be getting on this bus anymore. I don't feel safe with that. You're moving to the Gold Coast now, I believe. Sort of, is that to help you out, sort of on that progression towards Paris? Kind of like what's brought about that move?
I've been with Craig, who was my coach up until now, for 13, 14 years. I started with him when I was 11. And so I've just been, not doing the same thing, but in the same program for, as long as I've known. It's all I've known. And I mean, realistically, I may only have 3 years left. So it's like, I may as well try something new, something different, and see what happens. So I guess it's a part of refocusing for Paris, but it's also just like, I guess, answering that question of, what if I try this as well? The cliche, leaving no stone unturned.
Keep pushing it that way. And then so in the meantime, like Commonwealth Games, Birmingham, World Champs obviously as well, big year in 2022. So kind of that's just where the focus is at right now.
Yeah. Com Games and Worlds next year. Worlds is quite early and trials are quite early. They haven't left much time for everyone to have a break after Tokyo, which seems a bit cruel. So, I mean, we'll see how we're tracking. And I think, across the board, there's going to be big opportunities for people to step up and secure a position on the team because of that tight turnaround. There'll be people that won't be ready, but there'll also be, after Olympics, it's natural for people to step aside as well. And then Com Games, Worlds next year. I think it's, in 2 years. My years are very confused with COVID. And then we're there. So, I mean, realistically, it's only 2.5 years once you get into it.
It's crazy. I mean, here we are, time of recording this, months away from another Olympics in the winters. So it's kind of, kind of that way. Have you thought about switching folk? Like, I mean, we see it a lot. We say, Jana Pittman did it, obviously, hurdles to bobsled. I mean, I don't know where you can relate the swimming to any sort of winter sports, but I mean, there's an opportunity wanting to go to all these Olympics. You could switch focus to curling or something like, who knows?
maybe not winter, but I've been getting into in my like off season, I've been getting into ocean kayaking. So maybe like K1 or K2 or something.
Yeah,
Or
and that's a sport where you can go deep into your 30s. I mean, Ken Wallace, I mean, how old was he? Like, still going, so yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And it's transferable, shoulder strength, rotation, stretcher.
Yeah.
And I've always loved sailing as well, so maybe sailing.
Right.
But I think, I mean, you need to start sailing very early and have an unbelievable amount of natural talent to make it. Yeah, so probably
keep on
not.
Pushing, Mac. You never know. Stranger things have happened, right? Like you never know. Now we close out with a series of sort of get to know you questions. I'll get to in just a second. But one thing I wanted to touch on, you're talking about things to do post swimming. Your website is filled with amazing photos, which people can buy.
Thank you.
I like
thank you for the plug.
Yes. Well, tell us about this. Sort of, is this always just been a hobby? Is this something you've always wanted to do? I mean, tell us about your photography.
I've just always loved taking photos. When I was like maybe 13, 14, I'd just ride my bike a lot with my mates. We'd just go nuts around the neighborhood, and I'd always have a camera just taking photos, which sounds lame now that I'm saying it out loud. But that's where the passion.
We won't judge. It's fine.
Just like capturing, memories with friends, and I guess part of being able to travel and swim and go to these events is I enjoy like capturing the sort of behind the scenes stuff that people don't ordinarily get to see. All the prints I think I've got on there are just like cliche travel shots because that's what people like to put on their wall. But if I'm going to keep plugging it, there's a good photo of all the medals on there.
I was going to say that's my favorite. I'm looking at that right now, sort of like black and white, and sort of there's wheat bix there as well, and like water bottles, and just like it's looking great.
And that's honestly what our table in our apartment looked like all week, just like breakfast cereal and tuna bowls and medals, like
random Olympic medals mixed with wheat.
That's the Olympics. Yeah. It's just like the perfect summary
photo
of the Olympics.
Yeah,
it's just always been a fun little thing. And I mean, if I can sell a few prints, it's a nice extra revenue stream.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, bargain, $5. I might have to pick up a few here, Matt.
That's like, very small for $5. Yeah,
will you sign it? Will you sign it for me if I buy one?
Yeah, but it ships to you, so you have to bring it to me, and then I'll sign it.
Okay. So there's like that sort of, that extra element. All right, okay. Make me do all the work. I see how it is. Actually, on that too, I forgot to ask my standard question in terms of our medalist guest. What do you do with the medal? Like, is it on display? Is it kind of somewhere safe? Like, where is the Rio Gold?
It's in Melbourne somewhere.
Somewhere in Burke Street. There it is. It's on the ground. There it is.
No, it's Mum and Dad have it. And it's in a hardy spot.
Nice. Is it something that, like, legitimately when you do retire, reflect, house, kids, wife, all that sort of stuff, that you might put it up on display, something like that?
Oh, I don't think so. No.
A lot of people just put it in the sock drawer, Matt. Like, oh, there it is. Get my
I'm all for that. It's not for me, really. I think you can get quite philosophical about it, but I think the gold medal just represents like the journey and the process and everyone that was involved. And it's not actually for me, it's for the people to enjoy and to share. And I mean, you should see it. It's like banged and scratched and the ribbons like shredding. Because I honestly go to school groups and just like throw it at the kids. I'm like, there you go.
I saw a post on Twitter. I can't remember which Olympian it was. They'd won a medal in Tokyo and they were like, oh, I've dropped it, shit. And then like somebody else has commented like, well, if there's no scuff marks or, the ribbon's not worn, like you're not doing it right. Like that's kind of the point of an Olympic medal, to show it off.
Exactly. It's not for you. It's for everyone to enjoy, try on, touch, scratch with their rings and their watches, and pass it around.
Yeah,
you can't do that in COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah. All these Tokyo Olympians have these pristine medals. And it's like, what are you doing with these?
They actually
Can't imagine Emma McKeon's kind of like all these photos she's doing around her neck, kind of banging around, clanging around. It's kind of like, they've got a few chips on it.
She can take one out for show and tell and then leave everyone else in pristine condition.
She can just share them. I think you can just give them around. Like, oh, you can have one, you can have one. You have 3, you have 7. Yeah. Like, I've got plenty to keep me busy. Like, all right, like, sure, let's just do it that way. As I said, we close out with a series of fun get-to-know-you questions. Now, these are based on a Team Canada questionnaire they gave their athletes ahead of Rio and Pyeongchang. And I always like to choose an athlete from the same sport, and thankfully Canada asked some questions to some swimmers. Now, Santo Condorelli, is he a swimmer that you came up against at all in any of your races, Canadian?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Don't know. Yeah, I'm not too familiar, sadly, with Santo, so
it sounds like a sprinter's name, doesn't it?
Yeah, one of those sprinters. Ugh,
yeah.
like, come on, Jesus. Work harder at your swimming, Santo. Like, anyone can swim 100 meters. Try 15, all right?
These are not my
meditate.
Words. These are not my words.
Kyle, what are you doing, Kyle? Like, stop being,
no.
1500.
Let's not start this.
Do you actually, is there a thing where you could say to Kyle, like, oh, good on you, you win a gold. Like, let's middle ground it, like halfway between the 750 meters. Who's better?
Definitely not. He's a big boy.
I want to see this. It's like the Michael Johnson Donovan Bailey thing they did years ago. Who's the fastest man? Let's meet in the middle. Kind of.
Well, 200's probably as close as it gets.
Yeah. Okay.
400, 100. Yeah.
There's a balance there.
It does happen.
Now, so these are just random questions. Though, as always, we give you the option. There is a drawing element. If you're that bored currently in quarantine, Mac, you can draw a picture of yourself if you really want to. Send it in to us, and we'll put it on social media. I mean, it's entirely up to you.
Potentially. Okay.
Yeah, yep. Potentially. You might get that bored. We'll start off with the best candy in the world is.
I'm a shocker for sweets because I burn so much energy, and then if I go to the supermarket hungry, I'll just buy a bag of something and I can smash it easily and not feel ill. My go-to is probably like peanut M&Ms.
Oh, yes.
Because I try and convince myself that the peanuts are kind of healthy.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's like eating a cherry ripe, right? You're eating fruit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So kind of. I like that. That works that way. Your favorite sandwich is?
Oh, you've been to Melbourne a bit?
I have. Yes.
Are you familiar with Hector's Deli?
I am not familiar with Hector's Deli.
It's a place in Richmond. All they do is toasted sandwiches, and they do a Reuben toasted sandwich.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I will say, like, Melbourne, my favorite place in Australia, and I need to go there next time. Now that the borders are opening up, I can go there.
Hector's Deli is the place to go.
I'll mark it down. Your favorite sports movie is?
I actually don't know. Is there a pass? Sports movie. Okay, I'll say now kind of Rush.
Oh, yes. 100%. Love it. Are you an F1 fan, or is it just?
I am an F1 fan.
Oh, okay. Don't get me started on this. This is a whole other conversation. I mean, standard Ricardo fan, or are you kind of into any other drivers or teams?
Ricardo's a favourite, and probably Lando's. So I guess McLaren. I'm a big fan of. But I don't really. I'm not like I go for that team religiously, or I go for that driver religiously. It's just like I enjoy the different personalities and just observing.
So how many Grand Prix? Like, did you constant at Albert Park every year?
Well, I live up the road, so I hear it every year, and I've been to watch a couple of times. It clashes with training a lot, unfortunately.
Well, the pool's right next door, though, isn't it? Like,
it is. Yeah. And so we swim, and we'll see the Formula One cars go past. Like while I'm swimming, I can see it all.
Which I love that actually when you're walking, because that's like turn 3, and I always remember you see the people doing the laps, and then you got the people sneaking up into that outdoor stand, just sitting there watching the cars.
That's me. Yeah.
You're there. All right. Well, there you go. I've seen you twice in person, Mac. That's the whole time. There's Mack Horton up there watching the cars.
But it also always clashes with like a New South Wales state championships or something. We're always somewhere else, and I get so filthy because I just want to be there watching it.
Just want to go there. Wow. Which, I mean, it's in April next year. So, I mean, I don't know if that helps or hinders.
No, I think trials are around April, so it's probably a no-go. Yeah.
God damn it. We had Ash Werner, bobsledder, on, and she's a big Ricciardo fan, and we were talking about how, like, she's got a very high energy like Daniel Ricciardo, so she was like, I'd love to get like a swap going on with, get Danny Rick in a bobsled and get me in a McLaren F1 car. Like, as a gold medalist, can you pull some strings and be like, hey, like, Daniel, like, we'll get you in the pool while you're here in Albert Park and, shove me in a McLaren.
I don't think gold medals have that much pull in the Formula One world. When you watch a Formula One race, it always blows my mind, the celebrities that like go up to the drivers and they're like, wow, you are amazing. Like, they're just another level. It's insane.
Yeah.
The fame
It's also funny when you see the awkward ones. I don't know if you remember that famous one from the Australian Grand Prix when Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel met Nicole Kidman. And basically Nicole Kidman's like, hello. And Kimi's just like, yep. And he just turned away like he didn't give a shit.
Well, they'd meet so many people, and Kimi is notorious for not caring. So
oh, yeah. He wouldn't give two shits. Nicole Kidman, who? Like, if you ever want to read a great F1 autobiography, Kimi Räikkönen's autobiography is brilliant.
Okay, I'll read it here because I'm looking for things to
do it. And one of the best, like they've got a whole section on Kimi Räikkönen quotes. And one of my favorite is a journalist asked him, they're like, oh, Lewis Hamilton has said that Formula One is better than sex. What would you say to that? And Kimi's like, maybe he's never had the sex. So I was like, yep, all right. Good on you, Kimi.
Did he release a poetry book of haiku or something?
Oh, I think he did. Yeah, you're right. I remember that. Yes. Oh, Kimi. And his Instagram is weirdly entertaining. Like he literally posts like a picture of him and his son and it will just be like fun. And like you're just like, it's so Kimi. It's Kimi's brilliant. Love him.
It's iconic, yeah.
Yeah. If you could have lunch, I mean, this could be your answer. I don't know. If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
No, Roger Federer. Jeez, nice. I stumped over that.
We know who you're talking. You just say Roger. It's like, one word.
Roger, and everyone knows. Yeah.
Exactly. Kind of works that way. Do you bump into him at the Olympic Village? Like you kind of try and star spot him at Rio?
I didn't see him. In Tokyo, I sat across from Novak.
Nice.
But I just feel sorry for these guys at the Olympics because, again, they're just at another level of like fame and people just come up to them and ask them. They can't go anywhere. They can't sit down and eat. They're just constantly getting harassed.
Yeah.
It'd be so annoying.
See why like the dream team like go and stay on like a boat in the harbour, right? Because, they're just not wanting to get ruined. Like Kevin Durant's not bumping shoulders with Slovenian golfers.
Can't walk anywhere. Yeah, it'd be exhausting.
Just works that way too. Do you? I mean, frequent the Australian Open? Like, is that kind of? Do you have you seen Roger play?
Yep. I reckon Ella, my partner, and I have been for maybe the last 3 or 4 years.
Nice.
The beauty of winning Olympic gold medal is that you sometimes there's some perks, and the Australian Open is one of those perks.
Which I can imagine when Channel 7 had the rights to the 10, that maybe also helped a little bit, right? They've got the Olympics and the Australian Open, so because I've seen that right now with Ariane, like I think with the Melbourne Cup and all that, they're kind of getting her on board and things like that. So that few perks.
It's helpful when there's a few crossovers.
Yeah, exactly. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Cool. Because I'm in hotel quarantine in Brisbane right now, I'm going to say Melbourne.
Perfect answer. When was the last time you actually were in Melbourne?
9 days ago when I left.
Oh, right, okay. So it's not quite like you haven't been away for like, months.
No. But I've been in this room for 9 days straight.
It feels like you've been away for like 9 months, kind of, stuck there in that place. No, I know the answer to this one. As a kid, your favourite sports team, the Demons. You mentioned you don't really sort of follow other sports. Do you sort of gotten onto any other sports outside of F1 and AFL that you kind of follow?
Follow sailing a bit, and I quite like cycling actually. I enjoy cycling myself, but I love watching it, and particularly the Tour, which is so cliche because everyone watches the Tour. But there's this Australian guy called Lachlan Morton. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but the gist I'm getting is that he doesn't like the professional racing, but he loves pushing himself to the limit. And so he rode the entire Tour, including transfers, unassisted, and beat the peloton to Paris.
Wow, far out. That's awesome.
So it ended up being like 5,500 Ks and I can't remember, like 45,000 meters of climbing or something.
Wow.
And after
such an insane event.
Yeah. And after day 3, his knee blew up because of the angle of his shoes. So he did it in Birkenstocks. And he was like buying his own food and camping on the side of the road. Like, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
Stuff like that, like extreme, like just people pushing themselves to the limit. I love that.
Yeah. Wow. With the sailing, would you do the Sydney to Hobart?
That is my dream. I would love to.
Wow. Nice. Yep. Fantastic. Have you been to Hobart before, Mac?
I have a couple of times.
Great.
I am a big Tasmania fan, actually. I did the overland track.
Yep.
Which was one of the best things I've ever done. And I also, Ella and I did like a road trip around Tasmania. And we did the last day of the 3 capes down southeast.
Yep.
And that's amazing. It's like the edge of the world when you walk out there. I don't know if you've done it, but it's unbelievable.
Not yet, no. I've actually seriously never done the overland, I'm ashamed to admit, as a born and bred
Tasmanian. Got to get out there.
But
got to get out there.
Definitely. Did you do Mona? Standard Hobart answer.
Yeah, I've done Mona. Yeah, of course.
Did you like the poo machine? The poo machine's the best part of Mona, just watching this machine that does a shit. It's the best. It's the one thing I think that has stayed there since it opened, and it's like literally one of 2 in the world, I think. And you get talking to the staff, and like, oh, what did you feed it today? Oh, we fed it some salad and some yogurt.
Oh, I do remember this. Yes.
Yeah. So people who don't know what we're talking about, it's literally like an artistic recreation of the human digestive system that takes up a whole room. They feed it at like 9 a.m. It does a shit at like 3 p.m. It's brilliant.
And they feed it like real food.
Yeah. And you ask, every day they feed it something different. Because, the poo's a bit browner today, so we gave it some more fiber or something like that. Like, it's just... And also, when you went there, and I'll phrase this politically correctly in terms of the word, did they have the wall of vaginas there?
That is the one thing I remember most clearly.
Yeah,
I didn't want to bring it up, though.
I was going to say, this is a question you never thought you'd get asked in an interview, but there it is. I've asked you about the wall of vagina. But
I loved Freycinet. That was a nice part.
Yeah. The best thing, the most entertaining thing for anybody who ever goes to Mona is because there's no signs, right? You get the iPod and you go around and you don't know what anything is. So just stand back and watch people who don't know what they're looking at, because they're very unassuming, right? You don't know what they are until your face is right in front of one. So then, like, you've got, like, teenage boys who are like, like, look at that. Then you got, like, little old grannies going, oh, that's disgusting. And they just kind of, like, walk off. It's the best thing.
Maybe that is the art, rather than
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. David Walsh just gets off on just, people's reactions to this kind of things. It's brilliant. Your favourite workout is...
Swimming.
Yeah.
Or paddling at the moment, like ocean paddling, kayaking. Anything where I get that like arm fatigue. Surfing's included, probably. Paddling type sports. Yeah.
Brilliant. And all water, I'm seeing lots of water things.
I don't mind water.
Yeah, I'd hope so that kind of is a thing that you enjoy. Like, I'd be all of a sudden, I hate getting wet. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's dumb. If you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be?
Oh, to compete at, or to, you don't know?
Let's go questions. With the Canadians aren't that specific. They're just, let's.
I think it has to be Sydney.
Yeah, go back to Sydney. Not even your home city of Melbourne. You wouldn't want to see Melbourne get them again.
Wait, I don't know if we're talking about the next new, or go back to how it was.
I think this is just a case of right now.
I'd like to see Sydney how it was.
Okay, all right. So go back, sort of like time travel, be there for Sydney. I get what you mean.
And watch the men's 4x1 in the stands.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Being there in the stands. What are they having, like 20,000 people in those stands sort of back there in Sydney? And just...
I think they actually thought it was going to fall down, because when they did the maths for it, they didn't account for everyone jumping up and down at the same time.
Wow. Does that mean that Brisbane are going to be like, well, we can't let those New South Welshmen beat us, so let's go for 25,000, like we've got to increase the capacity. So. Yeah.
I hope so.
Jeez, I think that would be great. When you were little, you gave an answer to this earlier, which is something that I love when people give an answer to this question. But when you were little, what was something you always thought?
I can't remember what I said earlier.
Well, you said that you always ate, like you're always hungry, and I love it when people are like, when I was little, I was always hungry. That's a good answer.
I thought probably that I was always tired. I remember just falling asleep a lot during school, like under desks, on desks. There'd be teachers who would just know, and I'd just pass out, and they'd let me go and then come and quickly explain what I've missed out on when I wake up again.
It's all right. You're training for the Olympics, Mac. It's fine. 1 + 1 = 2. Now go back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Standard sort of things to catch you up on there. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
To fly. I think because that's what I loved about swimming. It's the closest you can get to flying.
Good answer.
That
I like that.
weightlessness. Yeah.
The one thing I always love about watching swimming is like the great camera angles, and you've got those ones in the water where like it literally does look like you're flying, kind of like the way you kind of paddling.
It feels like it too when you get going fast.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Mac, I mentioned your website in terms of where people can buy the prints, but plug social media. Where can people sort of stay up to date with what you're going to be up to in the lead up to Paris?
Wow, I've never had to plug this before. My Instagram's at Mack Horton. Very easy. My website's mackhorton.com.au. Also very easy.
Pretty simple.
And yeah, you'll catch me on there somewhere.
Do you want to plug anything else?
So
while you're here, buy your Melbourne Demons premiership merchandise, help support the club.
Do that. Buy some scarves and hats.
Yep. Hummus, sponsor me.
Hummus, I'm not giving them a plug in the plug section if it's not sponsored.
Yeah. I really think this needs to be a thing. Gone are the glory days of Olympic swimmers writing their names on products. Ariane's selling Harvey Norman products. Good on you, Ariane. I'll go buy myself a kitchen blender or something. Yeah, exactly. But I want something unique. I want you selling hummus. I want you hi, welcome to Cole's Update of the Week. I'm Olympic champion Mack Horton, and I love my hummus.
The awesome foursome with the little fruit cups.
Exactly. I only know that brand of fruit because of the awesome foursome, right? And that whole peaches, mango peaches thing that they used to do. Golden Valley Gold. Come on. Jeez, where are the hummus sponsorship being flown at Mack Horton? This needs to be
appreciate the push you're putting.
Hey, we're very influential and off the podium, Mac. Come on, we're able to do that. It has been a pleasure to be able to chat with you, Mac, to sort of learn more about your career and share some of the stories along the way. But we definitely appreciate it, and we'll be cheering you on all the way through to Paris. And I'm just going to say it: push your way through to Brisbane, mate. You can do it. Even if it's in kayak or sailing, be there in some capacity.
We will see. We'll see. Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking up an hour and a half of my 336 hours of quarantine.